So I'm on with Jack from Cracker Jack Cards.
Hey,
Hey, Jack. So you're on with John.
yep, on with John.
So I wanted to have you on because you're a young collector, and a lot of the videos that I see on YouTube by young collectors, it seems to be mostly about them going out and making deals and selling
Yeah,
cards and carrying their Pelican cases around, and it's mostly modern cards. And the one thing that is refreshing about you is that you're into the vintage cards,
mhm.
and you seem to really have a passion for collecting. So, what I wanted to ask you first is how did you get into collecting vintage cards?
So, well, so I when I originally started collecting cards, I was collecting football cards with my brothers, and I would just go to Target and pick up some packs and whatever I could get my hands on, and was cheap at the time, because I didn't have a job. I was like 6 years old. Um,
You didn't have a
so
job at 6 years old?
yeah, I know it's
Man,
crazy.
man, your generation has it easy.
So yeah, I would collect football cards, and then I was kind of like, oh, well, I wasn't really watching baseball at the time either. So I started watching a little baseball, and then um, one day I went into my basement where I am now, and I found a box of 1991 Topps baseball cards, and I saw those, and I was like, oh, those are pretty cool. And then I was like, oh, those cards are so old. I mean, they're like 30 years old. That is insane. And I was like, and then I kept getting more. I would buy these packs from Target of baseball cards. I'd get the modern stuff, and then I'd also get these ones, and it was like a mystery box, and it had like one guaranteed 1989 Topps pack or something. And I'd get one of those, and I was like, oh, those are so old. And then I kept getting older and older cards. When I think when I was about 9, maybe, or 10, my oldest card was 1982 Topps. And then after that, I went back down into. There was more cards in my basement that I didn't know about because at the time my basement was a mess. Um, but there was a box of vintage baseball cards that were my dad's old cards from when he was growing up, and those ranged from 1971 to about 1982, and they're all scattered across the box. And this was fifth grade, so that was my COVID year of school. So I took that box of cards. I still have the boxes right in front of me, but it was like one of those 5,000 count boxes. And I sat down while I was in school, and I was on my computer, turned off my camera, turned off my microphone, and I organized all the cards by year. So, yeah.
I
Um,
hope your teachers aren't watching.
no, I hope they aren't either.
So it's funny you hit on something, and this has been like kind of a long going debate more recently in the hobby of what constitutes vintage, right? Because in the old days, it was always considered that 1978 was the last year of vintage cards, and everything after that was modern. But to somebody your age, and how old are you? You're 15, right?
I'm 15. Yep.
15. So somebody your age, those cards from the late 80s or even in the 90s would be vintage, right?
Yeah, that's. I mean, at the time, that's what I thought. Now I don't really feel like they are as old that I thought they were. Um,
Yeah.
but what I consider vintage, just from purely what I collect, is I would say 1980 and back.
Yeah. That's a good cutoff. So how old what's your oldest what are your oldest cards or your oldest
Uh,
card?
my oldest card. Well, okay, I'm trying to think. I've got T205s. I mean, those are pretty old in my collection.
Those
Um,
are old.
yep. I've got, oh, what is it called? the fan craze card.
Oh yeah, 1906.
Are those older? Because
Those are older than the
yeah,
T205s. Yeah.
205 is 1909 to 1911, right? Was that
T205 is 1912, right?
1912?
1911.
Yeah.
1912.
So that's probably
1911, 1912. Yeah, T206 is like 1909 to 1911. The
yeah.
interesting thing about the T205 set is there's an Addie Joss in there, and Addie Joss died young and
Oh yeah.
was actually had passed away before that set was released. So the
Hmm.
T205 Addie Joss is actually after his playing days,
Huh.
and that's one of the toughest, most expensive cards in the set.
Now, I'm trying to think? Did Addie Joss only play 9 years, right? Or
I'm not exactly sure, but something like that. He did not have a long career, but he was a great pitcher.
yeah, yep.
So you know about Addie Joss?
I know a little bit. I mean, I know the name. I know. I feel like it was either him or somebody else, but they only played like 9 years, and there's a certain amount of years that they had to be into the how long you had to be into the Hall of Fame, and they made a whatever you call it. They let him in even though he didn't play the certain amount of years.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Uh-oh. John disappeared.
Oh, I lost you there for a second. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing. Now, how do you learn about these old players? What are your resources? Do you read books? Do you other older collectors, or how do you learn about
Um Personally, I'm not a very big book reader.
them?
However, I do make an exception for baseball books. Even then, I mean, I don't read as much as some people, but I've read a couple. Um, I don't think that's where I read the Dizzy Dean biography, and that's pretty much the only. I don't know. I've read a couple others, but most of my knowledge of baseball has either come from my dad, um, but obviously he wasn't living in 1909 or whatever. Um, so I would say mostly videos, like watching your videos. You have lots of knowledge about um, old baseball and a lot more than I do. Um, and then also going on the internet, I like searching up old players and going on to Baseball Reference and looking up their stats and how long they played. And, yeah, teams they played
Yeah,
for.
and like you, when I was your age, all my knowledge came from my dad, and
Mm.
I think a lot of people that get into cards and the history of the games at a very young age, that seems to be a common denominator.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you have that thirst and you want to learn more, and you start reaching out to books and magazines and wherever you could find the information. Now, obviously, for your generation, it's way easier than when I was your age. I
Yep.
did not have the internet. I did not have the benefit of all the great YouTubers teaching me about things, which, I saw a card today, 1950, Luke Appling, that one of the YouTubers sent in a group text. And I was like, wow, I never saw that before. And my buddy Rick, he hadn't seen it before either. He's like, is that a short print? So it's just amazing that no matter how long you collect, you still learn new things. Like, I swear I learn something new every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how extensive of a collection I have and how long I've been doing it. And I'm still learning constantly. Now, as I get older, the problem I have is, like, you're asking me what year a specific set was made and so forth. Like, this information starts to jumble around in my head and I get it confused. There's so much in there that I have to try to retain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted to ask you, so do you, first of all, you started collecting football cards because you play football, right?
Uh,
You're a center.
at the time, okay, so I only started playing football last year. So
Oh, okay.
I was in eighth grade, and I played on the freshman team at the high school. Um, but back then, I didn't play any sports. the only really reason I started collecting football cards is because my brother was collecting football cards and I thought they were cool, and I thought he was cool. So
Yeah. Yep, that's what happens. Now, let me ask you this: do you have friends that you collect with
yep.
around your age?
There's one other vintage baseball card collector that I know, actually. That's like my age. His name's Pure Collector. I don't know if you know him, but he was the one that originally kind of pushed me to make my channel because he had a channel as well.
Ah,
And so we collect together. We live pretty close, so I mean, we hang out all the time. We go to baseball card shows and signings, everything like that. So yeah.
I do know him, and I crashed your live stream that one day with
Oh
him, and there was another guy on there too,
yeah.
another young collector. That was fun. Yeah, pure collector. I can't interact with him because he has his comments turned off. I've tried
Yeah, I
when I've
know.
gone to
Don't
comment on his videos.
off. I don't think he knows how to change it.
Yeah, well, that's great. I had some neighbor kids that collected when I was growing up, and it really added a lot to it. I had one specific friend, and he was the kid that we used to walk down to the stores and walk to the flea market and go whenever we could, and it really enhanced, the collecting experience to have somebody to share that with. Now, back when I was young, we used to flip cards, so a lot of our
Yeah.
cards from our childhood were not in the great condition. Your generation grows up knowing, don't touch those corners, man, and put it in protection and send it in for grading or whatever you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that. In fact, a lot of the kids would write their initials on the back of the cards to make sure
Yeah.
nobody stole them or they didn't get mixed up with other people, because we used to just go from house to house with our box of cards. And every time we would get together, everybody had their box of cards, and you'd trade and flip, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite old card?
Um. Yeah. Well, obviously, I don't know how many people know this, but my favorite player is Harmon Killebrew. I'm a Twins fan, so I mean it's a pretty easy choice for me. Um.
Right.
Uh. So I just recently bought his rookie card. I got it off the auction, so I haven't gotten it yet. But I also got his rookie card and his second year card. So I guess those could be classified as my favorite because he is my favorite player. Um,
Yep.
but also I think I mean I got some cards over here that are I like the I mean I said the T205s, I like those.
Yeah, they
Just
were, they were one of my favorite sets. I love the T205s.
I like the 1956 cards. I like the designs on those with the action play and the the portrait of the player. Um,
Now the 56, it's a common theme when I interview people or talk to collectors. Everybody seems to love that set, and it's a great one.
it's a great set.
Yeah,
1956 and 52 Bowman, I think, are my favorite sets from the
yeah,
50s.
that's another beautiful set. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was about your age and a little younger, for whatever reason, I had access to the 1956 cards at my local flea market. There were lots of them around.
Mm.
And that set is way easier to find in better condition than the 55s for some reason. I don't know why. In
Yeah.
fact, when I came out of my childhood collection, I only had one 1955 Topps card for some reason. It was a Don Mossy. I just didn't come across them as a kid. They don't seem as readily available, and certainly not as easy to find in top condition. I don't know if you found that.
Uh, that just brought a memory back to me. My first real vintage card was at an antique store, and it was a 1956 Richie Ashburn, and I still have it, and it's still in my set. So, um,
Yeah, that's a great card.
and
I
yes, I
love his
have.
54.
Yeah, his 54. Yeah, yeah, with the white. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I love that card. That was one of the cards I had as a kid. Still
I
have it.
do. I do find the 55 more hard to find and a little bit more expensive. Um, although I am I did buy a ton of cards, a bunch of 1956 cards from Jake Brewer. Uh, So I've got
My
like,
last guest.
yeah, your last. I just watched that. About 30 of that set done. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So do you collect modern cards too?
No.
No modern cards.
I mean, I
Never
have
you never open packs or
when I just started collecting, I'd go to Target and I'd buy packs. But now, I I will not spend the money for cards that I don't like. I I
yeah.
just don't.
Yeah, I hear you there. I stopped buying as many new packs and so forth because number one, I'm running out of room, right? You have to store them. If you're a collector and you're not selling them, and you end up with I'm always buying new boxes to put the new sets in, the new cards every year. I have them broken out by year, and I found that it's probably cheaper and takes up less space, and in many ways more fun just to go buy the specific cards you want from that year,
I
right?
have done that. Not. I mean, probably in the last year, I probably bought maybe one or two modern cards. The only card I bought was a Joe Ryan. He's a pitcher for the Twins. I like him, and he's got a nice mustache. But I'm pretty much the only one I've bought.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting from you because a lot of the younger collectors these days it's almost like a little bit of a lottery where they're ripping packs open trying to find that high priced
Yeah,
card. It's a little bit of a lottery system these days. Now it's always been that to some extent, but over the last few years, I mean, the amount of money some of these cards that you could pull out of a pack today sell for are insane. Where in the
yeah,
old days, you'd get that great pull just because you wanted it for your collection. Because as a collector, it was a great card to have, and you thought that, hey, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that could be worth a heck of a lot of money. But nowadays, you could just pull a card right out of a pack, and it's worth $1 million.
yeah,
It's kind of insane. I always joke around that as extensive as my collection is and all the great and rare and old cards I have, you could literally pull a card out of a pack today that's worth more than my entire collection.
yeah,
And that's the difference between being a collector and I guess trying to go retire early, pulling some lottery ticket kind of card, right?
yeah. I think another reason why I don't collect is just how much players move nowadays.
Yeah.
Don't stay on their teams, and like I bought a couple. Luis Arise. He used to be my favorite player on the Twins. I absolutely loved him. He had hit for contact. Uh, he wasn't striking. He struck out like 20 times maybe when he was with the Twins, and I was just like, oh, love this guy. And then we trade him for Pablo Lopez. Unhappy.
Yeah. It's tough, you like Harmon Killebrew is your favorite Twin, your favorite player. A guy like that, a guy like Al Kaline, a guy like Roberto Clemente, I mean, they spent their entire careers with one team. And nowadays it's just simply not like that. And I think sometimes it is harder to fall that much in love with a player who maybe played, half his career with your team and then moved on,
Yeah,
especially if he beat your team later on. In modern sports, that's just the way it is. And I think if you look to any of the guys that stayed either most of their career or all of their career with one team, they seem to be way more beloved, like Carl Yastrzemski, for instance, right?
yeah,
Yeah, amongst the local team fans anyway.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that's something that I miss about the old days. But I mean, even when I was growing up, they started to move around a lot more. Like I was a Dave Parker fan. He went to the Reds. I was a Barry Bonds fan. He went to the Giants. So we still dealt with that as well. Yeah. So do you have a favorite? I know you mentioned the 56 top set T205. You really like those cards. Are there any other vintage sets you really like? Uh, let me say this: are there any other sets you like that you don't have yet?
that I don't have.
Yeah.
I don't have a 6 card actually. I've looked at them. I've tried. I mean, they're just. I know I can pick them up for on the cheaper side, like some of the lesser known players. But I mean, I just haven't found one that I really liked yet. So, and then there's other ones. I mean, I don't have a 1934 Gaudi. I don't have what one set that I really want to get is like one card from the Cracker Jack set. Um, I mean, my channel's named after it, so
Right. Right.
um,
So you have to have at least one.
yeah. Uh,
Wh- Go ahead. Go ahead.
um, I'm trying to think of some other sets. Uh,
That's okay. Where do you buy most of your cards?
um,
Do you go on eBay? Do you go to card shows? Are there certain auction houses that you prefer?
so the auction house that sponsors me, Sterling Sports Auctions. Um, I buy a lot of cards off of there, and then I also buy a lot of cards off of Facebook. Um,
Oh
well,
yeah.
it's a great place to buy cards. And then I also, I mean, eBay once in a while. Uh, I used to buy a
When I
lot. I don't know. I think I feel Facebook, like the like the groups in Facebook. I feel like it's a better. I feel like it's better to buy off of there.
Yeah, you get better deals there, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when I first took all my cards out of storage again back in 2014, I started looking on Facebook for card groups and stuff, and man, I found a whole bunch, and I would routinely get fantastic cards, for what I thought were great prices, and there were
Mm-hmm.
all kind of different types of auctions, and it was a lot of fun. And I look back on that, because after the Corona COVID boom, um, man, I can't even touch those prices I was paying back in 2014, right?
Yeah. Uh,
So, so where do
I
you think the? Oh, go ahead.
I
Didn't
just
mean
thought
to
of
cut you
a
off.
couple that I don't have, but I would love to have, and that was what's the one? What's that one set? And it's got Roy Campanella in it. It's like the hot dog set, and
Oh, the
he's got
Wilson 1954 Wilson Franks.
that's definitely one that's probably one of my favorite cards.
Yeah, that's a great set, and you used to be able to get the lesser players pretty reasonably priced. They've all shot up pretty good now. That's a bit of a pricey set these days.
Yeah,
I'm fortunate I had gotten my Ted Williams and Roy Campanella and Bob Feller and all the other ones that I have, many years ago, and I was lucky
yeah.
because they're a lot more pricey today. So if you were the king of the hobby, what would you change about it?
If I was the king of the hobby, are you talking about like across the entire hobby, or are you talking
Yeah,
about
anything about the modern hobby. Is there anything that you would change about it, or do you think it's perfect?
obviously it's not perfect. We start, um it trying to think. Well, hmm, I think I think a great way like I've never seen a baseball card advertisement on like a commercial.
Yeah.
I feel like if you put some more commercials out there, and then also I would absolutely I think it's a great idea to bring back like on post cereal boxes. Like you can find the cards on there. I would, oh, man, that'd be
That'd be
great.
great. The Kellogg's cards, the Hostess cards. They just, I guess it's becoming such a monopoly with the cards, and you just don't see, cards on all the products like you used to.
Mhm.
And you're talking about TV commercials. Back in the early '90s, there actually were a good bit of commercials, and even before that, I remember watching, and this had to be in the early '80s. I remember seeing an ad for Tops, and it was during a ball game, and there was like a kid collecting with his father, and I remember thinking, "Wow, that looks so wonderful." I wish my dad collected with me, because my dad, even though he was an absolute sports fanatic and taught me everything I knew, he really didn't care about cards. He wasn't into cards. He had some as a kid. His mom threw them out, and he never looked back or felt the need to buy them when he got older. But I remember seeing that ad, and I'm like, that's so great. A father and son collecting together. Now you have that with your dad,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's something that you should cherish, and I'm sure he cherishes it. I'm
Yeah.
sure of that. Yeah.
Uh,
So do
I
you
think.
collect a lot of graded cards?
Um. So here's my thing about graded cards. So I was watching the On with John, the last one you did with Jake, and it's pretty much like that. So with my sets, I don't want any graded cards. I want them in my I want them in my binders, and I want them all together, except for my Harmon Killebrew cards, which I put on my wall. Um, but everything else in the binder. I've got a couple graded cards, and that's just like I've got this one. I just kind of
And
accumulated them, and there's no really reason to crack them out. And
and what
some of
card
them,
is that? What card is that
it's
for our
Rabbit
listeners?
40 play ball.
Say it again.
Rabbit McNair.
Oh, okay. 1940 play ball.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great set. And what's interesting about that set is how they intermix some of the old greats, the all-time greats. And what's
yeah.
also interesting about that set is how they omit a lot of the old greats. Like there's no Babe Ruth, there's no Lou Gehrig, there's no Ty Cobb, there's no
Yeah.
Hannes Wagner, but they do have George Sisler, Pie Traynor, Grover Alexander, Frank Chance, players like that, Johnny Evers. Yeah, it's an interesting set.
It is. Yeah, it is very interesting. Um,
Now, is there? Do you have any? What? Let me ask you this: do you have a dream card that you don't own, like an absolute, like what they call a holy grail card?
yeah. Um,
What is it?
I mean, the 1953 Tops Satchel Paige is definitely a dream card of mine. Also, like the 33 Babe Ruth, the 33
Yeah,
Garrett, um, any Walter Johnson playing days card. Yeah.
yeah. I never had a 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth. I have the other two you mentioned, but I just never had it. It's always been a pricey card, all three of them. And yeah, those are some that got away. For me, I took them for granted because you could always just get them. They're out there. And so I would go for the more obscure Babe Ruths that were harder to find when I could get those. I started with those, just kind of figuring I could get to 33 Gaudy anytime I want to spend the money. But now they've got very pricey. They've gotten very pricey, and I just don't pay that much for cards. So I may never get one. Who knows? But I'm
Yeah.
with you that those are pretty much Grail cards. The 53 Satchel Page, I love that card. That's a great one. I was fortunate enough to get one a long time ago. Same with the 33 Gaudy Lou Gehrig. Now you're aware that 33 Gaudy Lou Gehrig has two different numbers. There's two different versions as far as the numbering on the back. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so you know how in a 33 Gaudy set, there are often more than one cards for the same player, right? Like Rogers Hornsby has two different poses. Babe Ruth has three different poses. For whatever reason, and it's kind of a mystery, why they did two different poses of Lou Gehrig, but they're the exact same pose, just two different card numbers, and it's very odd. So if you're a completist, you kind of have to have both of the Lou Gehrigs, but they look identical.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
master.
yeah, right. Do you work on any master sets? I mean,
Well,
well, you don't collect a lot of new ones, so that's probably a dumb question. But
I'm
you
just.
did mention that you have binders that you like to keep your sets in. So
Oh yeah, I've got. I think I've got everything. I saw. Okay, let me think. I've got in my room. I've got a giant bookshelf, and it's full of all my binders. They're all um, by year, and it's everything from 19. So I've got everything from 1952 tops to 1982, and then I've also have the 1968 Globe imports, and I
oh yeah,
have
those little
the
tiny things.
yeah,
I have a set of them right over here.
and then I also
I'll
have
show them for anybody that's watching that might not know what they are. Yeah, that's a set. Local card store gave these to me when I walked in. He had put them aside, and he's like, "I know you like the obscure stuff.
mm,
What other people call oddball. I don't call a card oddball, but he had put them aside for me."
and then also the embossed set,
Oh
um,
yeah,
and
what's
then
that? 65?
I
Is
think
it
it is
65?
yep, and then I've also got the 1950, 1952, 1954, and 1955 Bowmans all put into binders, and a couple other random sets as well.
Okay, so from those years of Bowman, do you prefer? Do you have a preference, Tops versus Bowman?
Um, I think I would say tops just because they had more years and there's more to choose from, and obviously the 53 and the 56 and 55 are some of my favorites sets for tops. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it right here, and I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but I don't think the 1953 Bowman set is. I don't think it's all that.
Okay. This is
I'm just.
cutting edge news right now. You may
Hey,
have
hey,
some people mad at you.
I really like that card.
I love the 53 set. And I know, when I was growing up, people had mixed feelings on it because there's no names on the front, there's no team on the front position. You would have to turn it over for that. And if you weren't that, a baseball fanatic, a lot of the players you might not know to just look at. But
Mm.
I do love that set, and it's one of my favorite Mickey Mantles. I love the Mickey Mantle in that set, and I might be alone on that. I don't know. I just find that to be a beautiful card. But it's okay. We all have our preferences
Mm.
of cards we like, we don't like. Like I love the 1933 Gaudi, with the cartoons and the cartoon body.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like that set, but I always loved it. It's okay. And for me, when I'm talking about those runs of both Tops and Bowman, I can't decide because I love them both. Like I'm one of those people. I have a problem in that I love all cards. There are very few cards that that I would just shun aside.
Mm.
Um, and I just love all those sets. They all offer something a little different and a little unique. I know I used to, when I was younger, be a little frustrated with the 1954 Bowman set because they had the names written in cursive.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Now, your generation, you don't even learn cursive anymore,
I
but uh, we learned that. But it's hard to read.
it
And
is.
so when you're a little kid and if you don't know the player you're looking at, it's sometimes hard to read their name on there. So I used to get a little frustrated with that.
Mm. Yeah, I think I'm part of very few kids my age that actually know cursive. We learned it in school in third grade, and that entire year we had to write every single piece of homework in cursive. But in fourth
Is that
grade,
right?
in fourth grade we
Oh,
never
I
had to.
thought they stopped teaching that sooner than that.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
that's more recent.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it doesn't really have any place other than to sign your name, so I don't really have an opinion on it. I always print it anyway. It's just way easier for me to print, and I think it's more readable when
Yeah.
somebody's trying to read your writing. So I was always a printer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Never a big fan of cursive, and like I said, it's hard to read sometimes if somebody's not really good. Have good penmanship. So, do you
Yeah.
have your eye on anything coming up? Any kind of any cards you're really wanting to get like that are within reach?
Um, Hmm. I think. Well, I'm trying to complete the Harmon Killebrew Tops run, so a couple of those cards. Let me think. I
Do you
mean,
have any of the rare obscure Harmon Killebrews?
I have a couple. So I have the Peters Wieners from 1961, I believe. 61. And then I have the coin. I forgot what year.
Armor coin.
Uh, I think they're tops, aren't they?
Oh, the 64 tops coins.
Yeah, I have one of
Yeah.
those, and I've got the Globe import, and I don't really have any really obscure ones.
So the Peters Wiener, that's obscure, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
I mean, that's a regional. I'm assuming that's a regional
But even here,
company.
it's like it's worth some money. And mine is it's not the whole package; it's just the actual part of him cut out.
I don't know that I've ever seen that card. Is it low pop?
I'm not sure. I don't I don't really look at that, but it's not
Yeah,
graded.
I'll tell you the hot dog cards, all those hot dog cards. I can't think of any hot dog cards that aren't at least scarce, right?
Yeah,
I mean the 54 Wilson Franks is probably the easiest to find, believe it or not. When you get into the 54 Briggs meats or um, the cons can be tough, you know, all the hot dog cards.
yeah.
They're tough.
I love the regional sets. Mostly um, the Minnesota regional sets. I actually picked up I think it's a 1934 um, Minneapolis Millers promo card,
Promo card?
or what's it called? I forgot. It's yeah,
It's
it's
just promoting the team?
no. I said it wrong. It's not a promo card. I don't remember what it's called, but I picked it up and it looks really cool. I love the Minneapolis Millers, um,
Huh.
and the St. Paul Saints. But yeah,
So, do you collect any other sports now, or you moved exclusively to baseball?
it's almost completely baseball except for uh, I collect some Vikings cards, like the Purple
Yeah,
People Eater and the Mick Tinglehoff is like my legend. So
right. Because you're a center, right?
yep.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you do because you know I had sent you some Vikings cards.
Yeah, and some of them are up in a display now. So
I mean, they had some great teams. They just couldn't win that Super Bowl, but they went, you know, often. They just couldn't win it, but they had some great players on their teams. Yeah, for sure. So
I think
you could find Jack on YouTube. His channel name is Cracker Jack Cards, and
yep.
you got to get a Cracker Jack card now.
I
And
so
maybe I don't know. Do you have those? What year was that? 91 or 92? They made the mini Cracker
yes,
Jack cards.
80s
Do you have any
KB
of
mini.
those?
Yep, I got a couple.
Oh, okay. At least you have those. And they had a little album to go with them. And you know, even though I was into vintage and I'm not really into reprints, anything like that, I really enjoyed getting those when they came out. You know, those little because how many people can have a Hannes Wagner or a Ty Cobb Cracker Jack in their collection? It's pretty limited, so it was fun to collect those things. Yeah, are you anywhere else? Are you on Instagram? Are you
I
anywhere
am on
else? Obviously Facebook.
Yep, Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I don't post a lot. I usually post the daily immaculate grid when I complete it. Um, but yeah,
So yeah, I know some guys that are playing that. They're always texting. Yeah, I haven't checked that out yet. Today I just opened a Facebook, or, I'm sorry, an Instagram. Never had an Instagram. Everybody's like, you got to be on Instagram. I was pushing it off. I'm like, you know, I have too much social media. Like I want to have less, not more. But
uh,
I finally broke down today. So and I think I followed you. I'm sure I followed you.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I went through and they were all these suggestions popping up of different card people that I know. So I spent all morning following people. All right, Jack. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on here with me. You've
Thank.
officially now been on with John.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, man. Keep up the good work and keep collecting. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
And thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Appreciate it.